Good morning, everybody. As we go to the Chitas of today, we're holding in the portion of Shemini. We are holding, today is Tuesday. We're holding the third reading in that week's portion on chapter 9, verse number 24. Hashem, and a fire came out from God. And it ate what's on the altar, the burnt offering, and all the fats. Vayara Kalaam, and the entire people saw it, Vayarunu, and they sang praises. Vayipla Pneim, and they fell upon their faces. Rashi says Vayarunu, there's many different interpretations to the word Vayarunu, and Rashi interprets it like the Targum interprets it, which is to praise. Chapter number 10, verse number 1. Vayikhu b'nei Aaron Nadav Avihu, and Aaron, the sons of Aaron, Nadav and Avihu, then took each one took his pan. Vayitna ben Eish, and they put upon it a fire. Vayasimala Ekteris, and they put upon it the incense. Vayakrivel of Hashem, and they brought this offering before God. They brought this offering of an Ekteris before the Eibishter. Eish Zara, this was a offering that was not commanded to do. It was a foreign service, which they were not commanded. Hashem, and a fire came out before God, and it consumed them. Hashem, and they died before God. So here the Gemara talks about different reasons why would there be such a response. Rabbi Lezer says, that the sons of Aaron died because they decided the matter in halacha, which is to offer an incense. They thought that this would be a right thing, even though that Moshe Rabbeinu was standing right there, and they could have asked the question, but they decided to do something without asking a question. Rabbi Shmuel says they died because they entered the sanctuary after drinking wine, and that's the reason why they died, not because it was more the concept of drinking wine which brought them to this situation. And how do we know that? Rabbi Shmuel says, you know that because after the death of these two boys, God, the first thing God tells Aaron is the mitzvah, the command that you're not allowed to drink wine. So you know that there's a connection as a parable of a king who tells the member of his household that what they should not do. And because something's going to happen. So you see that the connection of drinking wine. Verse number 3. This is what God spoke. I will be sanctified through the nearest to me. And I'll be honored before all people. And Aaron was silent. She says, Heichan Diber, where did the Eibishter said this whole statement that I'm going to be sanctified through those that are? Where was he said to me? Heichan Diber. So now she says there was a connection with that. There I will convene with Israelites. It says, so over there it says that I will sanctify myself for my holiness. And the Gemara says, do not read b'chvaydi, but b'mechvaydai, through my honored ones. Moshe Rabbeinu said to Aaron, my brother, I was aware because God told me that I'm going to be revealed through those that honor me. But I was thanked by my death of those intimate with God. But I assumed that it would be me or you. But now I realize that your two sons are even greater than both of us. And therefore we see their greatness. Vayidim Aaron, and Aaron was silent. Rashi says he received the reward for his silence. What was the reward that he received for his silence? So he got it. This was the mitzvah, the communication. He got a law straight from God to Aaron himself, and that's the commandment that we're going to soon read. That God told Aaron that the law of not drinking wine when he come to the Beis Hamikdash. B'kroivai means those that are near to me, means through my close ones. And I'll be honored through all the people. She says, when the Holy One, blessed be He, executes judgment upon the righteous, so people realize that that's dynamic, because a righteous person really doesn't deserve to have a die, God forbid. But when a person sees a righteous person, he becomes feared, exalted, and praised. You see the greatness of God. If such punishment is meted out on people, all the more the wicked. Similarly, it says in the Torah, "Noira lekim b'mikdashecha." You will be feared God from your sanctuary. Don't say mikdashecha ever mikdashecha. Don't say from your sanctuary, but from those who make you holy. Verse number 4. So Moshe Rabbeinu called Mishal and Litzaf, Bnei Uziel, who were the sons of Uziel, Doid Aaron, the uncle of Moshe and Aaron. They're cousins. He said, listen, call them over, they're cousins. He said, listen, they were Leviim. He said, listen, you need to do this. You need to go into the base. You need to go and take them out of the Beis Hamikdash. You have to take these bodies. You have to take these bodies and you have to bring them out of the Beis Hamikdash. Now she says Uziel was this brother of Amram. Shenema Bnei Kos is brought down in the portion of Shavuos. It gives the chronological history of Moshe and Aaron. Uziel was the son of Kahas, and a brother of Amram. Suis achechem, like a person who says to his fellow, remove the deceased before the bride. God forbid somebody who passes away at a wedding. You don't cancel the wedding. You tell the person, listen, we'll take out the person who died, and the wedding will continue. So too, because you don't mix a simcha b'simcha. So too, you don't. He said the celebration of the day, of the dedication of the temple, needs to go on, and you cannot bring about a stoppage in this day. Verse number 5: Akrivu, so they approached by Yisub b'Konteisim, they carried them in their tunics. They brought him out of the camp and they buried him. Kashadiba Moshe. Asher b'Kotontam, in their tunics of the dead. This teaches us why does the Torah have to tell us they carried on with the tunics? This teaches us that their garments that their garments were not burned. When it says they were burnt, it was not that they were burnt. They were burnt inside. Only their souls, meaning the form of 2 threads of fire, came in their nostrils and consumed them. Verse number 6. And Aaron said to the sons, and Moshe to Aaron and to his 2 sons, Eliezer and Isamar, Hanesarim, al Tifru, do not render your garments. I first will do not let your hair grow, and do not render your garments. Least you get angry, and we bring anger. You're going to bring the anger of God upon you and on the Jewish nation. Ko Beis Yisrael, and the entire Jewish nation, Yifkos Asreifa, will cry this destruction. This fire, Asher son of Hashem, which the Eibishter burnt. Now she says, do not let your hair grow. From here we deduce that a mourner is ordinarily forbidden to have his hair cut. Avalatim, but you're not disturb the joy of God. You have to continue, and they have to take in a kohen. He's not allowed to allow his hair to grow. Musu. Now just from here you know that if they would have done it, they would have also been put to death. Your brothers, the entire house of Israel will cry this situation. From here we learn that everybody must participate in the grieving of a Talmid Chacham. That it's a mourning not only for the family of the sage, it's a mourning for the Klal Yisrael when a Talmid Chacham passes away. Verse number 7, Pesach Oil say to you, not only you're not allowed to mourn, you're not allowed to leave the Beis Hamikdash. Pentamusu, God forbid, to be the opposite of life. Kishem and Mishra Hashem Aleichem, you have upon yourself the anointed oil of God. Moshe And they did what Moshe Rabbeinu said. They didn't leave the Beis Hamikdash on that funeral day. Verse number 8. Hashem Then God spoke to Aaron, and he told him the following law: Yain v'seichel. Do not drink wine in such a way that you get drunk, it leads to intoxication. Ata you, vanecha, and your sons, itach, that are with you, when you come to the tent of meeting. So God forbid you will not die. This is an everlasting law for your generations. Now she says, Yayin v'seichel means that wine that is drunk through brings about intoxication. From these words, I would understood that this applies only when they enter the sanctuary, the Beis Hamikdash. From where do we know that when they approached the altar that was in the courtyard, that it's outside the sanctuary, that they're not allowed to do the avodah of the mizbeach either? They're not allowed to do either the service of inside the altar, inside the Beis Hamikdash. Not allowed to do outside either. So how do I know they approach the altar outside the sanctuary? The answer is entering the tent of meeting is mentioned here. And entering the tent of meeting is mentioned with also regard to the washing of the hands and feet. So the washing of the hands and feet was outside. So just like the Torah equates approaching to the altar to entering the tent of meeting, so too we know that the law over here, that a person, like a kohen, that's intoxicated, is not allowed to do the avodah, whether it was inside the Beis Hamikdash or whether it was outside on the courtyard, which is the service of the altar. Verse number 4:10. When one is sober, you can be able to differentiate between the actions of making something holy and making something unholy. Understanding the difference between what's pure, impure, and what is pure. Now she says, in order that you distinguish between holy service and profane, a kohen needs to know how to do the service. He needs to know what is right, what's wrong. So if he's intoxicated, he cannot do that. His service is invalid. Verse 11. Now the Torah talks to a regular rabbi. And so to those that need to. Similarly, only a sober person can instruct the Jewish people. It could be a rabbi that can paskin, eskol chukim, and can say the laws, the rules. Ashidibra Hashem, which God spoke, aleim to them, biyad Moshe, through Moshe Rabbeinu. Now she says, Limaid over here in his instruction, this teaches us that an intoxicated person is forbidden to make a halachic decision. I might think this person, that if there's such a case, he would be liable for death penalty. The rabbi who does give a psak in intoxication, he's the chas v'shalom, can be put to death. Therefore, it says, Atu v'nchu itach. The concept of the opposite of life is only concerning a kohen. Kohanim avdasim misa. This law of the opposite of life is only by a kohen if he does a service intoxicated. The Torah says it's the opposite of life. But ein chachamim v'dasim misa. But a sage that judges in a time of intoxication doesn't have the same law. He's, God forbid, not put to death if he does a law while intoxicated. And that completes the Chumash for today. We now go to the Tanya of the day. We're starting the 42nd chapter of Tanya. In the previous chapter, the Alter Rebbe explained that fear of God is a prerequisite to divine service. Every Jew is capable of attaining this level by contemplating how God stands before him, right? Hine Hashem nitzav olav, and searches the reins of his heart, to see if he's serving him fitting. This thought will lead him to bring forth at least some measure of fear in his mind. This in turn will enable him to study Torah properly, as well as to perform both positive and negative commandments. Alter Rebbe also noted that the level of fear, Yira Shamayim, the level of fear is known as Yira Tata, lower level of fear, which is a preparation step to the proper performance of Torah mitzvahs. This degree of fear must also be manifest if one's Torah study and performance of mitzvahs are to be deemed avodah. So the Alter Rebbe explained this. To be a service cannot be only service of love. It needs to be also the service of yira, respect of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So now the Alter Rebbe is going to continue in that concept. The light of what has already been taught, Mashas by Leil, in accordance to what we've learned before. In the lower level of fear, that brings a person to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Yuv and Gemara will understand what is written in the Gemara. Gemara says in the Pasuk, At Yisrael Ma Hashem Elokecha Shel Mimach. God asked Moshe Rabbeinu asked the question to the Jewish people, and now Israel, what does the Lord your God require from you? Ki im liyira. The Eibush is only requiring one thing from you, that you should fear him. That's a pasuk in Chumash. So it's a pasuk in Chumash, Devarim. God says, Moshe Rabbeinu says to the Jewish people, what is God asking for you? God is asking you to fear him. And the Gemara asks the question, Otu yira milsa zutasi, is fear then such a small thing? God is asking one thing, to fear him. Is fear such an easy thing to acquire? The Gemara answers yes, it is. Why? The Gabi Moshe, in the case of Moshe, milsa zutasi. Concerning Moshe Rabbeinu, it's an easy thing. That's the Gemara's answer. Superficially, the answer seems to be said that Moshe, what Moshe Rabbeinu spoke to the Jewish people is for him, not for the Jewish nation. It's for him. Yeah, it's easy for me. What is God asking of me? But that's not a good answer. It doesn't say what God is asking for me. That's what the verse says. It says, "What is God is asking me mach from you." So the answer of the Gemara is the opposite of the verse. The verse says, what is God asking for you? And the Gemara answers what God is asking from him, from Moshe. So it doesn't make sense. What does he require you? Meaning, what does God require from every Jew? The majority of Jew, fear of God is certainly certainly no mean accomplishment. It's not an easy accomplishment. What then is the point of answering that from Moshe it's a simple thing? Alter Rebbe now goes on to explain the answer of the Gemara. That in the case of Moshe, it's a simple thing. It does not refer to Moshe alone, but to the Moses which is found in every Jew. There's a spark of Moshe Rabbeinu in each and every one of us. For Moshe imbued all Jews with the level of Das. Torah tziva lonu Moshe. Moshe Rabbeinu gave everybody the Torah. What does it mean he gave everybody the Torah? Yerusha. He gave everybody the Torah as inheritance. It's a pasuk in the Torah. Torah tziva lonu Moshe. Torah that Moshe Rabbeinu taught us. Ma'irasha, it's inheritance to the congregation of Israel. So that means Moshe Rabbeinu inherited to us something like any parents inherit. Just like we say the patriarchs inherited something to us, so too Moshe Rabbeinu inherited to every Jew something. What did he inherit to every Jew? Knowledge of Torah. Moshe Rabbeinu, that's why it says Moshe Kibel Torah Masara. Moshe Rabbeinu was the ultimate receiver and the ultimate giver. He gave every Jew the capability to learn Torah. Because Moshe Rabbeinu gave over the Torah in a way that every single Jew, man, woman, and child, can learn Torah. found in every Jew. The statement is made. In the case of Moshe, it's a simple thing. What does it mean? Indicate the spark of Moshe in you. It's simple. For when a Jew utilizes the power of Moshe found within him, meaning when he binds his das with godliness, when he thinks about God, that's all what we mentioned all before. When a person thinks about God, and once in a while thinks about HaKadosh Baruch Hu, thinks about the Holy One, blessed be He. So then the fear of God is indeed simple thing and easy to attain, as presently explained. So that's what the Gemara answers. In Legabi Moshe, if you want to do this easily, just connect to the Moshe that you have within you. Connect to the wisdom that you have within you. The explanation is as follows. Kol nefesh b'nei Yisrael, each and every soul of the house of Israel, yeshlo bechinas Moshe Rabbeinu, has within him a quality, a concept of Moshe Rabbeinu of blessed memory. Ki meshiva roim, because Moshe Rabbeinu in the Zohar is called one of the 7 shepherds. Shepherds. Just as a shepherd provides nourishment to the sheep, Moshe Rabbeinu was called the 7th shepherd. So too the 7 shepherds sustained the Jewish soul with the vitality of God, each from his own spiritual level. Abraham gave the Jewish people the faculty of chesed. Abraham was the first shepherd. He was the first shepherd. He was the first Jew. Abraham was the first shepherd. He was called the shepherd in the Zohar because Abraham gave the concept of chesed. Yitzchak was a shepherd. He gave gevurah. Yaakov was one of the shepherds. He gave tiferes. And then you had Levi, etc. So the son of Yaakov. And then ultimately came Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu was called the 7th shepherd. Chassidim relate, the Alter Rebbe pondered for a considerable number of weeks whether to write the 7 shepherds, provide godly vitality, chayes elikus, or whether he should write vitality and godliness, chayes elikus or chayes ve'elikus. He finally resolved to write the latter, vitality and godliness. Chayes ve'elikus. So he decided after a couple of weeks of meditating, she put this letter in there. For vitality refers to the love and fear of God, since this is the way they vitalize and performance of mitzvahs. Godness, elikus, refers to self-nullification before God. The 7 shepherds then cause both vitality and godliness to flow into the souls of every single Jew. Moshe Rabbeinu, Olav Shalom, Moshe Rabbeinu was the culminating of the 7 shepherds, right? So Moshe Rabbeinu, Kol Hashvi and Chavivim, Moshe Rabbeinu was the 7th one, and he brought about this concept to come into full fruition. He brought about the concept to come into a reality. Moshe Rabbeinu gave the Torah to the Jewish nation, built the Beis Hamikdash, the Mishkan, etc. And that's why Moshe Rabbeinu, out of the 7 shepherds in the Zohar, he's given a title, Raya Mehemna. He's given the title, the faithful shepherd. There are 7 shepherds, so to say, from Avram Avinu, but Moshe Rabbeinu was given a special title, and he was called in the Zohar the Raya Mehemna. He's called the faithful shepherd. What does that mean? Because he's shepherd faith. Moshe Rabbeinu, the other 6 shepherds didn't have the capability to infuse this concept in a nation. Moshe Rabbeinu infused this into the entire Jewish nation of his time and ultimately throughout history. The Chalalas Yisrael to the entire Jewish people, Li'edas Havaya, to know God. You can see that also in Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. They had a whole gathering, but they all disappeared. The whole gathering of Abraham, all his followers, they disappeared. And so to the whole gathering of they disappeared. So they were followers as long as the Abraham lived. Moshe Rabbeinu made leaders, so to say. He was a faith, he shepherded faith. He didn't give faith only Jews, and then when he left, that was it. No, Moshe Rabbeinu, he was a shepherd of faith. He taught Yidden how to have faith themselves, to use their own brains to create the concept of faith. I understand why the Yidden were at loss when Moshe Rabbeinu, because for a moment they were following the past, that they needed to have this shepherd. No, Moshe Rabbeinu taught Yidden how to shepherd, how to have their own faith, that how to use their own das to learn Torah, and to connect to the Torah. That every Jew doesn't need Moshe Rabbeinu. He needs the coaxing of Moshe Rabbeinu. He needs the teachings. But once Moshe Rabbeinu gave it, he gave it to us, and now every Jew can take what Moshe Rabbeinu gave and push it and simply bring it down into his own life. And then it came everybody according to the intellectual capacity of his soul. How he's rooted above. So according to the heights of the source of the soul that is above, now every person can take this learning and create his own faith. According to the degree of the nurture from the root, but we're all connected to the root of Moshe Rabbeinu. A blessing, man. Which Moshe Rabbeinu was the conduit of the wisdom of God. Ultimately, Moshe Rabbeinu was connected to Chochmah of the world of Atzilus. Which in the world of Atzilus, the attributes of the world of Atzilus is one with God. So therefore, ultimately, Moshe Rabbeinu was Moshe Kibul Torah Sinai. Moshe Rabbeinu was the ultimate receiver. He had the capability of receiving the Chochmah of the world of the nation. So just as God, that's why it says, powerful statement, because in essence, Moshe Rabbeinu had that capability to become the Chochmah of the world of Atzilus. Where in that level, there's hard to see the difference between the two concepts. So in terms of the creator being, so too, he's called the emanator of these entities found in the world of Atzilus. The world which together with its beings is an emanation of Ein Sof, and therefore, Shehu v'dai te'echad v'amad, in that world, the world of Atzilus, he and his knowledge are one, and he is the knowledge. So I explained in chapter 2 of Tanya, God's knowledge and man are utterly dissimilar on the human plane. The knower, faculty of knowledge, and the which is known are three distinctive separate entities. However, concerning God, he is the knowledge, he is the knower, and he is what's known. Thus, supernal knowledge is one with him. And it's within this level of das that Moshe Rabbeinu's soul is rooted. And that's why Moshe Rabbeinu, as brought down in the Zohar, had a neshama of Atzilus. That was his capability. That was his capacity. It was a gift. That was a gift from heaven. And that's why he was a most humble person, because it was a gift from heaven. When a Jew receives the capacity of das from the soul of Moshe, he's able to perceive godliness in a truly knowing and internalized manner, so that he actually experiences God. Utilizing this capacity enables the Jew to know and feel how God stands before him and sees his action. It is therefore easy for him to summon up within him the fear of God. If we thus tap into das, if we thus truly tap into our knowledge, we'll have the capability to bring about this concept of fear of God. However, all the above refers to the luminary aspect of Moshe, which is received by every Jew. The Rebbe now goes on to say there's even a higher level of Moshe. A spark of Moshe, soul that is bestowed upon the spiritual leaders and sages of every generation. A spark is an actual part of that flame. Unlike the ray of illumination, which is not truly part of the luminary, so too the sparks of the soul of Moshe, found within the leaders and scholars throughout generations, are part of Moshe Rabbeinu's soul. So everybody has within him a ray of Moshe Rabbeinu. He gave us capabilities. Tzaddikim in every generation have a part of Moshe Rabbeinu, the spark of Moshe Rabbeinu within them. That's what the Zohar says. The task of these leaders is to teach God's greatness to the Jewish people. So they will serve God with all their heart. And that's what tzaddikim came to the world. Tzaddikim come to the world simply to inspire the generation. Because they're like Moshe Rabbeinu. They came as faithful shepherds to inspire the generation, to uplift, to bring about Avas Hashem, Yiras Hashem. So furthermore, behold, in every generation, Yod Nitzut, sparks of Moshe Rabbeinu, Nishas Moshe Rabbeinu, sparks of the soul of Moshe Rabbeinu, all of Hashem, bless him, sparks of his soul come down, they come down and they clothe themselves in the bodies, in the souls of every tzaddik. And that's why in the Gemara, great sages, tzaddikim, are called Einei Ha'eda, the eyes of the congregation. Because the spark of Moshe found within a spiritual leader, he's called Moshe. As in the Gemara expression, Moshe do not speak aright. This spark is closed not only in the leader's soul, but also in his body. This is why Chassidim say that one never tires of gazing at a Rebbe. For within him there's a spark of Moshe Rabbeinu. Gazing at a Rebbe, that's why we have a picture of the Rebbe in our homes. Because gazing at a Rebbe is looking at Moshe Rabbeinu in a way. Creates a spark within him. As known by Chassidim, was said, why do you have a picture of the Rebbe? And the answer is, because it also says, your eye shall always see your teacher. But also because the Rebbe, that's like a mirror to you. The Rebbe, they're looking at a Rebbe, looking at a tzaddik, tells you what you could be. Tells you what you could be. Inspires you to be better. Tells you that because the Rebbe was a human being. He was not he was a human being like anybody else. But he had the capability, he had the Rebbe. A Rebbe has the capability to uplift us all. And that's why you should have a picture of a tzaddik in wherever you can be. Because you should always see yourself, how could you be? Because a tzaddik like Moshe Rabbeinu inspires you to be better. Awakens you up your Av and Yida that you know what, even though you're human and you're just a simple person, but you could be better. Because you have an neshama like the tzaddik has an neshama. Both of us have a godly soul. And we all need to inspire ourselves to be better. And to serve God with his whole heart and soul. Because the service of the heart, one's love and fear of God, it's all based on your knowledge. So we're human beings. And we need to, it's all based on what we think. It's all based on what we think of ourselves. It's all based on what we think who we are. It's all based on this concept. Without your das, without your knowledge, you're not going anywhere. And everything you're going to do in life is based on your knowledge. As the verse says, Das know your God, v'avdei b'leiv shalom, and then serve him with your whole heart. V'nefesh chafetza, with a longing soul. Thus, in order to serve God with all your heart and a longing soul, it's necessary to know your God, your Father, to know and compare his greatness. This is taught to the Jewish people by the scholars of the generation, within whose spark Moshe Rabbeinu. That's like Moshe Rabbeinu came to uplift the whole world, to uplift his generation, and so too tzaddikim come to every generation simply to do one thing, and that is to uplift the Jew. Mashiach comes. There the prophet says, Mashiach comes, it's written, and they'll teach no more every man his neighbor. You won't need anybody because you'll see godliness. And every man and his brother saying, know your God, for they shall know me. When Mashiach comes, everything will be known. So only at that time will a teacher be unnecessary. When Mashiach comes, you won't need a teacher anymore. We'll all be teachers. However, in our era, one needs to have a mentor. Impart knowledge. That's why the Mishnah in Pirkei Avos says, Asay lecha rav. You need to have a mentor. You need to have somebody you look up to. And you have to search for that. One is to have a mentor, impart knowledge of God's greatness. If one is to know how to serve God, we'll get to your questions later. With all your heart and soul. And one's dependence on Moshe through the intermediate scholars of each generation. That's why we have scholars and tzaddikim. The Eibishter Baruch Hashem did a great favor. They gave us tzaddikim, and he gave us great scholars to simply help us with this avodah. It's not an easy avodah. It's not an easy concept to be able to reveal this concept within us. We need to have this man. I say l'charav. Why? Because everything is according to knowledge. I need to have somebody to give me knowledge. That's it. I don't need somebody to give me my godly soul. God gave me my godly soul. I don't need somebody to give me Avos Hashem. God gave me Avos Hashem, love of God. I need somebody to give me knowledge. To give me knowledge. To be able to show me how to inspire my brain. How to learn things in a different way. How can I be able to inspire myself to be able to have a different attitude in life? And that's the Rayim. That's why it's called a tzaddik is called the shepherd of faith. He's not only the faithful shepherd, that he himself is a faithful. No, he's a shepherd of faith. He knows how to shepherd. He knows what the generation needs to give them the capability to have faith. That's what the Gemara says. That Mordechai b'dayre k'Moshe b'dayre. The Gemara says Mordechai in his generation is like Moshe Rabbeinu in his generation. Why? Because both of them had a different generation. Both of them understood that that generation needed different things. Moshe's generation needed one thing, and Mordechai's generation needed another thing. And so too, every generation needs something else. It's all the same thing, the shepherd of faith. But the tzaddik knows how to shepherd the faith of that generation. We'll come to them and we'll ask you, you'll ask your question. However, the essence of knowledge, which leads one to serve God with a whole heart, is not to mere knowing alone. That a person knows God, he knows God because he learned Torah, and he's learned a lot of books, and he's read a lot of books, and he's learned a lot of knowledge. That's not das. That is chokhmah. That is bina. Maybe we're looking for das. Das is knowledge, and as the Alter Rebbe started in Tanya, das is when you immerse yourself. Das is immersion. Das is connection. You connect to the knowledge. That's the hardest thing. We can all hear good drushes. We can learn Tanya. We can learn Gemara. We can learn philosophy. We can learn and learn and learn, and we have great knowledge and great understanding. The missing link is das, is to connect to this knowledge, that it infuses you the knowledge. It's like if you understand a physical thing. When you understand a physical thing, you're connected to it, and you want to be you want it, and you get it, and you use it. Not that you just have a person that knows about a car. He goes, he acquires the car, he drives the car, he enjoys the car. He is enjoying what he knows about. It's not something that's out there. I have a knowledge of something. No, he uses it. That's what you need to do. You got to take the knowledge of godliness and use it. Use it. And he concentrates on it with his thought. So when one does so, he's mightily bound up with the object of his thought. And he's unable to free himself from that. He becomes so connected. That's why we always say the expression, tzaddik b'menoshe yitzchak. That tzaddik lives with his faith. It's not something that he believes in. He walks it, he talks it, he lives it. And that's what you need to do. We need to just have faith in our mind. We need to live the faith. We need to live the Torah. As the expression is, Kehem Chayenu, this is the length of our life. This is our life. It's not just our faith. Yiddishkeit is not a fate, it's a life. That's why Shulchan Aruch is called halacha. It's called the halacha. Halacha is called to go, to walk with it, not just to believe in it and to think about it and just learn about it. No, it's to live it. It's to walk it, to walk the walk. When one does his mind bombed out, he can't even stop thinking about it. Think about God, and His greatness should be done in the self-same, all-absorbing manner. And thereby the thinker will truly bond up with Him. Das, as it's known, the das, when the Torah says das, it means unity, it means connection. And the example is when we want to talk about the union between Adam and Eve, God says the union, this physical union, this intimate relationship. It's also about all intimate relationship. This intimate relationship that we have with our spouses, this intimate relationship we have with another person, is to know the other person. That's what Alter Rebbe says in Tanya. To love a Jew is to know a Jew. Not just to love him, because he's a part of the Jewish nation. No, it's to know a Jew. You need to know a Jew. You need to know the makeup of a Jew, and that's why you love him, because he's part of you. He's in essence you. You're loving yourself because you both have a godly soul. You're both part of a godly entity. And to know God is to love him. Because once you know God, you have to love him. As the Alter Rebbe writes in Tanya, if you really know God, then you love him. That you don't love God is because you don't really know him. You're meditating on him. You believe in him. You're afraid of him. You don't know him. And you need to know the Eibishter, every person to his capacity. The word yada in the verse connotates union. In the verse says, Adam yada as Chava, and Adam knew his wife. This das entails knowing something to the point that one is completely united with it. The same is regard to the knowledge of godliness. And this, every person, as the Alter Rebbe says many times over, the knowledge of God, every person is separate. Every person does it to their capacity, to the level of their soul, first of all, the capacity of their brain. Same with regard to the knowledge of godliness. Although when one just knows godliness, he is already fulfilled a mitzvah, still, this does not suffice. It's necessary to one achieve the union of das by meditating deeply on the God's greatness, that he Pashut feels it. It's not something that he believes in. He simply comes within his mind, at least, that he feels it. And that completes the Tanya of the day. Today is the 24th day of the month. So if you say the Tillim, chapter 113 to chapter 118, you do the chitas of the day. The Rebbe writes in the day-to-day, the Yom Yom, first of all, it's our custom not to recite the bracha of Shechiyanu during the days of the Yom. So therefore, you don't need a new fruit in these days because you don't want to say a Shechiyanu. We all possess an element of non-good, the Rebbe writes. Why the scapegoat, the Shar La'azazel, represents evil to banish the Azazel. The Torah says you send one goat to a rocky Azazel, it's called, to a rocket mountain. Was actually a service in the Beis Hamikdash. It's interesting. On every Yom Kippur, they would send one goat to the Azazel. Why was that part of the service? Why wasn't it only the service to bring the carbon? Why was it a service to send this goat to a rocky mountain? So a physical created being inevitably has a negative element, but we must banish. You have to banish it to Azazel. You have to take this negative element and to send it to a desolate land. Azazel is a rocky, desolate mountain. What do we learn from that is that when your evil elements, anything evil that I have within me, banish it. Get rid of certain concepts. You need to banish certain concepts you need to get rid of. And that completes today's learning. And Rich Shem, see you all tomorrow. continue to learn the Chitas at 8 a.m.